Hey everyone, Tactics here with Mythic Plus releasing for Season 1 next week. I figured it's probably a good time here to go over my easy to execute PUG friendly routes to help everyone start out the season right. This video is going to strictly focus on those specific routes where I've done my best to limit things like high coordination pulls and skips to give you the best chance of success in a PUG group. If you do want more in-depth information on the dungeons themselves, I do have guide videos over on my channel and linked below. And once the season does start, I'll post walkthrough videos of plus 10 keys and later on 0.1% title keys to give you an idea of how those things look. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to see those videos. I've also got a couple other 100% free to use resources available, written guides over on the Method website, linked below again, as well as my ability spreadsheet for Mythic Plus here. I can show you here. Basically, go through all my abilities. It's expanded upon the Dragonflight version, including bosses, including links to everything, including an image of the routes I'm going to be going through in this video. Got a lot of useful things here. People have suggestions. If you have any more suggestions for how to improve this sheet, please do let me know. Again, this will be linked down in the description. Now, one caveat before getting into the routes themselves: Blizzard has been known to kind of pull a fast one on season starts, doing some last minute untested changes to certain dungeons. So if that does actually happen in this season, I will keep the WAGO links to the routes updated in the description, and I will post a pinned comment down below as well, so you can scroll down and see if there is a pinned comment already, and that will say if there's any significant changes to whichever dungeons. Otherwise, let's hop into it right now. And to start, we've got Mists of Tirna Scithe. So to start, there is these the Night Elf, not Night Elf, sorry, the Covenant kind of abilities you could use, and this is now usable by Night Elves, Taurens, High Mountains, Druids, and Herbalists. So I've heard the Herbalist one is a bit bugged right now, and potentially Herbalists don't work. I'd expect that to be fixed, but something to be aware of. You can open up a shortcut here at the start, and there's also mushrooms over by this pack over here. I do have a skip here, and as you can see, there's like 7 different things that can help you accomplish the skip here to get past this pack, because it's very, very annoying. So Sap, Imprison, Sleepwalk, I believe Mind Soothe also works. Warlock Gate can go through the wall. Any hunter or mage can get you through with the CC, and then a combat drop, or Night Elf can get you through with the CC or combat drop. So there's a lot that can get past it, which is why I've included it. And in worst case, if you really need to skip this and don't have any of those things, which is unlikely, you can always use an Invis Pot. But this is one of the few skips that I have decided to keep in, because it was very, very commonly used back in Shadowlands, and I think it's still very, very good. It lets you skip a pretty annoying pack. So we're skipping that pack. Otherwise, have a nice big pull off the top where you can Bloodlust, do the skip, little pull, open up your mushrooms, assuming you're able to do that. Do your bow breakers, focus one at a time here because they will do their AoE at 50%. And then you got the first boss going into the maze. You have these seeds over in this area here that can unlock the graveyard. Anyone can interact with those seeds. It doesn't have to be the same restrictions I mentioned earlier to open up the graveyard here. And then you've got the maze, which is randomized each run. I've just put in kind of an average maze, I would say. I can't guarantee you're going to get this maze. In fact, most of you will not get this maze, and you're just going to kind of have to adjust on the fly. Notice the route is over a percent ahead of the actual count, and that's on purpose so that more routes going to actually fit into it based on your RNG in the maze. One thing I have noted here is this pull through the wall, which any group can do, assuming you have a player that has an ability with a range of 40 yards. Basically, you can walk onto the wall on this side of the wall, and you can target, I believe it's this Close Guardian, through the wall. That's worked all in beta. I tested it recently. It does still work. So my route does assume you pull this pack through the wall, so just be aware of that. But it is, like I said, quite easy to do. You don't need a pet class specifically. Anyone with a 40-yard range can shoot them through this wall, because the wall, for some reason, is just kind of fake. So there is that. Then you've got the boss. You jump down here. This is another little skip that you can do with the exact same things that you could do in the first skip with over here, which is why I've included it. It also, if you wait for a pat, you can actually just walk here without needing to actually use any skip abilities whatsoever. Or it also adds Slow Fall and Levitate as abilities that can use to skip this. But again, if you have a Slow Fall or Levitate, you can just, use like Polymorph and Invis, that kind of thing. But lots of things to skip these 3. And the reason for that is, like, these Staghorns are now significantly scarier. So you want to do, you don't want to stop here and wait a pretty significant time loss. So instead, we're going to skip those things using those abilities that are mentioned in the note. And you can do pulls here. And again, the whole bit with these pulls is that you want one staghorn only. That is why these pulls are designed in the way that they are. You need to be careful of these flyers when you're doing pull for 14 because they pad around in a big circle. You can use things like hibernate. Again, any CC that will affect a beast midair, you can do that to prevent the patrol from walking into you during pull 14, or you can just pull them into pull 14 instead of pull 15. Either works. Pull size here is a bit inflated. These larvas die very quickly, so don't worry about that. And then you'll go through and you'll do a couple pulls on this side of the area. Again, if you want, and you don't need to do this whole pull because you got a higher count maze, for example, you can instead like tag some of these reavers flying by and pull them into this one in 16 instead of doing a whole other pull in 17. This is just to make sure your bases are covered depending on your maze RNG. And then you move into the final boss. That is missed though, hopefully pretty straightforward. Move on to Necrotic Wake. I've tried to indicate here where the important weapons are with the notes. So spear is there, anima orbs there, there's another spear there, and then the final spear is there. So 3 total spears in the dungeon for you to pick up. Otherwise, you know, big lust pull off the top. You can either opt to go around initially. I recommend starting off by pulling this pack, chaining it into this first pull, just because you're gonna have bloodlust going. Some people will immediately pull this too. You can do that. I think it's probably a bit much for most pug groups, and I recommend just chaining, tagging this pack, and they'll walk straight through these 2 gatekeepers. They won't pull, assuming you just like have your tank just tag them quickly, and then you're right down the middle. Don't worry about that. And then you can make your way down the right or the top side here, pulling all this stuff. You can opt to pull these patchwork soldiers kind of whenever you get them. Same with these 2 here. These guys kind of patrol around the room. You can add them into pull 1. You can add them into the pull 3 here. You can add them into the boss, even pull 5 potentially. All up to you and depending on where that patrol is. And then you've cleared all this trash here. So you have this entire area, like kind of in this area, to fight the boss. You have quite a bit of room to actually do that. Then you can fight this pack up here and make your way around this gatekeeper down this area. Got a couple pulls in this area, and then you have Narzuda. Anyone can skip again by just hugging the left. It can get a little bit sketchy, so be aware of that. If you have like a warlock portal or a mind soothe, that can make this significantly easier, or a shroud where you don't need to worry about anyone failing. But generally, as long as like your healer can get through or someone can get through to the other side with a res, it's pretty fine. If someone accidentally pulls, they can all just die to the pack, and then you can just res them. But again, no actual thing is needed other than hugging this left wall tightly. So note that. You have this mini boss here patrolling around in this area. Be aware of him. He was moved on Mythic 0, and this is one of the changes that might potentially happen. This guy, I believe, is over here on Mythic 0, so be aware of there might be a potential count change in terms of what you're going to be pulling in this dungeon, because you might be forced to pull this guy, and you can see that guy's like 6% count, right? So I might do some adjustments if that is actually a real Mythic Plus specific change. It might be a Mythic 0 only change, so something to be aware of. Otherwise, though, you want to clear up this area here with the spears, and then you're just going to make your way around, avoiding this patrol, and just kind of, you know, chaining packs back to back. Jumping over this pillar, you can just casually jump over it, right? There's no weird stuff involved to skip this pack. Do the 1 Necromancer pull, and then you can go fight a Marth, and then make your way up to the Necropolis, which is down here. And again, the pulls in the Necropolis can kind of vary depending on your group. For example, you know, if you have Bloodlust going up, 14 plus 15 is a solid Bloodlust pull. Very, very big value. There's a couple kicks in there to be aware of, though, which is why I'm potentially maybe not something you want to do in a lot of pug groups. You can also chain 13 into 14 as well. Kind of just depends on your group and what you're comfortable doing. You don't need to take it super fast in here, though. It's not really a big deal. You can just kind of make your way around the room, and then, you know, some of the mini bosses, deal with the mini bosses. Stitch Flesh is where I recommend sending most of your weapons, your 3 spears, for the damage amp they provide on the Stitch Flesh, because I think he's the most dangerous boss now after the changes on beta. The last boss used to be the dangerous boss back in Shadowlands, but I think they've made him a bit easier, at least with the beta tuning. We'll have to see if that is true when the actual season drops, but for me at least, Stitch Flesh seemed like the scariest boss, so that's why I recommend using your weapons. And then you just go up to the Necropolis and fight the final boss. That's Necrotic Wake, though. Let's get into Siege of Boralus. This is always, as a note, the Alliance version of the dungeon. Of course, Horde still need to zone in at their portal, Alliance need to zone in at their portal, but when you put this in the Mythic Plus, it is always the Alliance version, so you will start here. There's also a bit of a weird thing sometimes happening here. When you try and jump down, of like ports you out of the dungeon. So I've ignored the kind of jump down skip here that was common for Alliance players in BFA, and instead we're just going through here. Don't worry if you miss a few of these gutters, by the way. They're relatively low percent, and we've kind of built in a bit of a buffer here with the count in this dungeon, because there's a lot of situations where these small mobs can sometimes bug out or maybe miss one and aggroing. So you can miss quite a few of these and you'll still be fine on count. Big pull here, though, with Lust. Moving through here, another pull here, pulling this pack outside of this room. This room's pretty dangerous because you have this guy up on this like stage, which is tied to these mobs. So if you try and do this pack first and you actually butt pull this guy, you actually get this entire pack. Also, you need to be aware of this patrol coming through and while you're doing this pack, so be aware of that. Then you move in, clear this up in front of the first boss. This is a boss, it's not a trash pack. Make sure you are not pulling it by accident with this trash, and then you're good. Moving through here, got a couple pulls, and then you have the one big gauntlet area here where you need to either run through super fast or hide behind the boxes while they're firing. Got this pack, got a few more of these small mobs, just like the gutters. Not a big deal if while you're pulling these guys over the boat into this pack, if these guys reset or anything like that or bug out, because you don't need their count necessarily. So you got this pull before the next boss, and then the next boss itself, which has seen some significant changes. So if you want to see those, check out the video guide. Moving through the Hosen area here, pretty straightforward. I've basically done a pull here where you do this stuff and then you can chain into these guys G31 whenever you're ready. You don't need to do this automatically. Same over here. This patrol is just going to most likely be butt pulled in a pug, so I've just added it into the route. And then again, this pull here with all this stuff. I have a skip here. I heavily recommend using an invis pot to skip this pack in particular, and then as a bonus you get to skip these two new mobs that were added very late into the beta, right in front of this door, because this pack is just going to absolutely farm people. Like this, there's 4 snipers and a spotter here. All of these guys just spam random target damage, and it's going to absolutely farm pugs to try and pull it. This is my one invis pot skip, I think, out of every single dungeon. This is the only one I have. This is going to save you early in the season a lot. Trust me, this is a spot where, you know, you should tell people, hey, I want to use an invis spot skip later in the dungeon. And then assuming you don't wipe in this room or to this boss, you will get the graveyard in this room for the last boss. So that is something to be aware of. Potentially punishing if you end up wiping in this room specifically, but this is a very high value skip in my opinion. And then you just clear the packs in this room one by one, and then you go boss into boss. That's Caesar Boralus. Again, this is my one skip. I'm guilty. I put one in that using an invis spot. Sorry. I guess if you have a shroud or a mass invis from a mage too. Haha, mass invis. That's definitely going to be played. But that is there. That is there. Sorry. Guilty. Moving on. Stonevault. We are a couple percent up here, and that is because I wanted to actually get the versatility buff in this dungeon, which I will talk about in a second here. You can do a pretty big first pull, kind of like Necrotic Wake, where if you want to add pack 2 into pack 1 here in your first pull with Bloodlust and LCDs, you can do that. It's a bit sketchy for pug groups, I would say, because this adds some additional kicks in, right? These invaders are going to be casting Arcing Void, going to be putting the cursed spell out, so it can be quite scary, so be aware of that. Otherwise, just take it slow, chain in with Bloodlust. And then similarly here, you know, do these packs. I don't need to do them at the same time. If you want to pull these two guys with this pack instead of with this pack, you can do that as well. Whatever works for your CDs and your group. And then we make our way after the first boss into the Machinist Wing. Again, you can kind of combine pulls as you see fit. If your tank has a lot of defenses up, you can combine 8 and 9. 8 is literally all tank damage, and 9 is a mix, so that's why make sure your tank is okay. Hug the right here and pull this pack. Avoids 2 loaders, which is really nice. This is where the buff is. If you don't have a blacksmith, a dwarf, or a warrior in your group, you can ignore this and then do a route that's closer to 100% count. But otherwise, I think this is fine. The other thing, too, is if you have something like Mind Soothe, if you have something like Sap or Imprison, you can actually skip this 3-pack entirely and still be at full count with this route. So I'm not going to assume every single group has that in their group, so I'm just saying you pull it. But if you do have that in your group, you can skip this by soothing this pack or imprisoning this close mob, and then shooting the gap between these packs here, and then going this way, and then you can do that the same way on the way out. And similarly on the way out, your minecart is here. These guys, you do not need any combat threat reduction radius to get past them. You can do that to make it easier, like a Para-Rop or like a Sap or an Imprison or a Mind Soothe, but it is not required to get past them. You just need to hug the left here and touch the minecart. Just be aware of this patrol. That's what you need to be aware of. But that is this wing here. Boss, of course, over there, and then you just make your way out, go to the minecart. And then you go towards Skarmorak. You've got the big pole here, big pole, 4 mobs. And then you move down, pull here with a few mobs. Watch this patrol, though. It may walk into you. Just be aware of it. Otherwise, you can just pull this patrol over here. I honestly don't hate just pulling this patrol into pack 16 kind of whenever it comes into you. Makes dealing with this pull over here a little bit easier. But then otherwise, you get into the room here. You can pull this guy whenever he's away from pack 19 into pack 18, and then do pack 19 on its own, followed by Skarmorak. Take the minecart back to the entrance, and then you go here, and again, you can kind of do this as fast or as slow as your group wants. It's not super uncommon to combine pull 21 and 22 here. It's probably not going to be super uncommon to do pull 23 with like one of these guys as well. So it just kind of depends how comfortable you are in your group. And then you have the final boss, of course, at the end. Then we've got the Dawnbreaker, everyone's favorite dungeon and how to traverse it. So here we go. We're going to go through it. First big pull here. Send your Bloodlust, get up onto your ship. You've got 2 packs here. If you feel comfortable, combine packs 2 and 3. If you don't, do them one at a time. Not a big deal. You can go over to the airships after you've done that. One airship here is 4. Other airship there is 5. Boss on the actual blimp. Then we want to go down into the city. I always recommend going to the big chapel, church, whatever that is on top of the hill. That is where I recommend you starting. And you can go to the right side here. And this, what ideally this will do is hopefully give you some decent bloodlust later on in the dungeon, because you did that big bloodlust on the first pull. You should still have some time, so you can pull some packs here. A lot of these packs are heavy tank damage and not much else. Basically, anything that has a Shadow Walker or a Tactician in it, those guys do big tank damage. That's all they do. So a lot of these pulls heavily focus on putting damage into your tank and not other players. So that is why they are designed in the way they are. So you can pull these guys together. Just tanks, be aware, you're going to be taking quite a bit of damage. Then you can make your way into the house from this top side, pull this pack, and then you can pull this guy. If you have Lust, you can pull packs 11 and 10 together and lust that. The other good bloodlust, if you don't have it up for that, is down here. Pull 13 and 14 together and lusting that. Also a really, really good value bloodlust. But before you do want to go down there, you do want to do the second mini boss. So you'll do this pull. You'll fly over to the mini boss right here. You can land right in front of the house and just pick up all the stuff and fight him right in front of the house there, so you don't pull any of this other stuff, and then go straight from there down to this area. This guy is the guy that shoots the orb out, so you do need to pull him out to here where I note and point the orb out of the city this way. And then you can fight the boss. Now, this is another dungeon that seems to be different on Mythic 0, where this boss is actually stationary down here. If this is the same on Mythic Plus, which I'm not sure if it is going to be, then you will need to pull this militant here. And what that's probably going to look like is you're probably going to cut like something like this. And instead, you're going to pull this, and you're probably going to pull these with this pull 12 there. So that is something to be aware of. That's the change I would make if this boss is stationary and you have to pull this guy. You just make this into a real pull, and then you add a bit of difficulty to that pull. And that's what I recommend doing. But I'm not 100% sure that is going to be true for Mythic Plus. So I'm leaving it like this for now. And then, of course, you kill the boss. You go up to the boat. You kill the mini boss on the boat. And then you have Rashinon at the end. So that is Dawnbreaker. Hopefully this helps you navigating this dungeon. Then we've got Grim Batol, and this is one of those dungeons where you have to pull almost every single mob in here to actually get to full count. So let's just go through it. You got the pull off the top here. Notably, you aren't going to pull this pack in immediately. They're like really far on the patrol, so just tag them when they're closer to the patrol. It'll be when this pack is like half done, and you can tank this dragon like around this corner to allow people to LOS the big hit around here. That's very, very useful. You can do these pulls in as few or as many as you deem fit. I've done it in 2. With pulling these guys together and then these guys together. Then you have your dragon bombing run, where I think I have a note somewhere here. Yeah, you want to prioritize whenever this pack is on top of either 4 or 5. You want to hit that. You want to make sure you kill 8 or get 8 as close to that as possible. And then otherwise, you know, hitting 4 and hitting 7 is just what you'll do in other cases as well. Do all these guys up to the boss. The big thing here is that you will spawn a Twilight Destroyer in this route right here. You touch the body of the Drake and it spawns this destroyer, and you can use the wall here again as an LOS spot for those that want to LOS that knockback and damage hit. Quite useful, of course. And I recommend doing this because it lets you skip some things later on in the dungeon. Like I mentioned, you have to pull almost everything. So we do an extra pull or an extra mob here, which is worth quite a bit of percent to skip something later on. Then you've got the first boss. I recommend dropping stuff again along this area and moving down the boss room this way just to conserve space. Then you move in here. You got a couple pulls. The boss does start over here and then will patrol slowly in. So you need to be aware. Ideally, you want to kill these 3 packs before killing the boss, especially on higher keys where you need a lot of space. If you're going to kill the boss super quick, potentially you don't need this much room. But on a lot of Mythic Plus keys, you will need to kill at least these 3 packs before you do that. If you have Bloodlust, you can combine pack 11 and pack 12 here. That is like a really nice Bloodlust to do. Pretty big value. A lot of tank damage. These Flame Renders are the most dangerous tank mob in the season, I would say right now. So be aware of them. Also, note this Shadow Flame dot they have is a bleed for some reason. So you can bleed cleanse it if you're a dwarf. So do that. Use that to your advantage. And just be aware of the boss patrol here. Do 10, 11, 12. I did these, and then I assume the boss would patrol into you. If you can, start the boss on one side of the horseshoe here, ideally over here, and just slowly move as you fill the area with puddles, and you can do 14 at the end. And then make your way, hug the wall here to avoid this pack. No skips necessary. And then you got a decently big pull here, assuming you have CDs of some kind. If you didn't have Bloodlust up in this area, you can use your Bloodlust on this pull. There's a pretty good Bloodlust here. Because you have, a warlock, couple warlocks, and as well as a lava bender. You also don't need to pull all these immediately, right? You can pull this to the side, deal with these guys rather, sorry, and then you can chain into this side as well. Up to you. Couple pull here, pull this lava bender down into the warlocks. Again, pulling this together, and then these guys are tied. Jump around the right here, by the way, to skip this pack. And then you got the boss, and then you got another pull into the dragon with some hatchlings, which again you can LOS around this wall here, and then just pull until the end. This is another very dangerous pull down here. So if you have Bloodlust for this pull, this is another really good Bloodlust. Otherwise, just be very careful if you are the target of these guys. That's way too many abilities. I can't remember the ability. The Corrupt, I think it is, on a single target channel, and you can use Feign Deaths, you can use Shadow Melds, those kind of abilities, combat drops to stop that channel if you are the target. So keep that in mind. That is it for Grim Batol. Only a couple more dungeons left. We got Ara-Kara, big Spidey dungeon. So note here, the pull counts in this whole area seem giant. They are inflated because a lot of these mobs have no HP. There's a lot of non-elites, and they just kind of die. They just fall over. So don't be too scared of this giant pull, for example. Like, more than half of these mobs will be instantly dead and gone. So big pull off the top here. You can Bloodlust it, move over to the next pull. You can get one of the casters out of the pull before you do the mini boss with another caster, just so you have enough kicks. Then you make your way here, pull to the left, another pull to clear the platform. Then you can go mini boss into mini boss pull before doing the first boss back on this initial platform. Making your way here. I do recommend going left, by the way. I think it limits the number of casters. You only have this one double caster pull over here, whereas over here you have 2 double caster pulls. And so that's why I recommend going left. It's just a little bit, safer, in my opinion, in terms of double casters. And also, there's only 1 blood guard if you go left. There's 1 blood guard, and there's only 2 casters versus 4 casters and 2 blood guards. So that's why I recommend going left. I know a lot of people just in Mythic Zeros and Heroics just went right because it's the obvious path to go through. You just see it clearer. But I would heavily recommend going left. Just watch, of course, these stag shells. That is the one downside. There were 2 stag shells here that you have to kill instead of the 1 on the way. I'm going to take that trade-off every time, though. So go left here. Go left, kill all these packs. Watch this stag shell on the side. It is not connected to this patrol. So just try and pull this patrol away from that stag shell. Then you got this guy, 1 pack, the boss. And then you're moving down into this last area. In this area, you don't need to pull this pack all at once. Same with 18. You kind of just do this, pull these 2 drones in, cleave them down, win this guy's patrol into a good area, throw some AoE onto them to proc all their puddles, and then add them into the pack. Don't need to do it immediately. Same with down here. These drones, then these guys are usually going to be right here with these drones, so do them. And then once there's actually the patrol is in range, then you can hit this patrol and add it in later on. Don't force it too early. You don't need to do that. You can also always pull this patrol over here. They pat like halfway through the boss room. This patrol is wrong, by the way. Yeah, these guys fly all the way to like here. So if you miss them when you're fighting this pack, you can always tag them over here without pulling these mobs. So don't worry, you can do that. Don't need to worry about that. We do skip this guy because this guy's stun is super annoying and he ramps up a lot of damage. And on higher keys, he's going to be very, very, very dangerous. That's Ara-Kara. One more dungeon, the last one, City of Threads. Okay, so right off the top here, I'm going to recommend not going straight to this area, and I'm going to recommend going to the top side here and moving all the way up the stairs with this guy. Your priority kicks are going to be on this guy, and there's going to be one caster in the Silk Binder in this pack as well. I think this pack is way less dangerous than the Swarm Guard, like Silk Binder pulls some people have been doing in like Mythic Zeros and stuff like that. You want to keep kicks on the Herald for sure, and then just a stop on this guy's Silk Binding. And then otherwise, you know, you just want to, this potentially a good Lust, even though it's a relatively low mob count, just because this is a very dangerous pull anytime you do stuff like this. And then you can move through here, pull these guys across into this area, just watch the patrol, pull 3, pull 4, and then jump down here and do pull 5. Again, no skip necessary. You can just jump over here. Clears space for the actual boss here. Just keep kicks on the Herald, of course. This pull is going to be pretty scary whenever this guy is going with his Ravenous Swarm in combination with whoever gets debuffed here with Shadows of Doubt, so be aware of that. And then you got the boss. You go across here. You can actually tag this guy if you have someone with range into this mini boss pull, so be aware of that. This guy is always static. It's always this one guy, so if you have someone with range, tag this in that pull. Very, very useful. Otherwise, I recommend rotating around the room clockwise, starting with the north area. Again, one of 3 spawns. It can spawn either here, or in the house. Those are the 3 potential spawns for this area. This area is the potential spawns, I believe, are right here, or there's one on a platform down here, or on a platform over here. Those are the 3 potential spawns in the east. And then in the west, the 3 potential spawns are like over here, in this house here, or over beside this house here. So those are the 3 spawns for that one. And then once you've killed this one, the RP is triggered when you go to the guy in the house here. So that's why I recommend going to the north first and the west last. You just go around in a big circle, and that automatically triggers that RP and go up to the boss. Then, of course, oops, there you go. You have the bridge. Let me move that back down. And again, if you feel like you are comfortable, you can pull this into that pack. Totally up to you. Similarly, you can pull 15 and 16 together, or you can leave 16 with the guy up top, the big mini boss. Then when you get into the house, I recommend taking a left. This is the entrance, so you'll turn left, and you'll do this pull here. You can also have someone tag these slimes down there, which for some reason one slime isn't selected, and this will trigger the boss RP, so someone can just go run, tag down, and these guys will slowly walk into this pull. Can be quite useful. Kill the boss, and then you come back up this way, and you just do one pull before the mini bosses. And again, someone run to the room while you're doing this pull just to trigger the mini boss RP to spawn them, and you just do one mini boss at a time, or if you're crazy, you can do both at the same time, but I don't recommend that. And then you just have the last boss. But there we have it. Hopefully this does help you guys out on your pugging adventures early on in the season. If it does, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it, including a video going over the hardest bosses this season, as well as plus 10 route walkthroughs later on. I'll also be streaming the season launch over on my Twitch channel and on my YouTube actually, so make sure you check that out at Tactics. Otherwise, thanks so much to my Patreons for their continued support, and I'll see everyone in the next video.